Most people think recovering cars from rivers means accidents. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it's a family waiting for answers, or detectives searching for evidence that someone hoped would never be found. I've pulled more than 80 vehicles from the water, but there's one stretch of river where every recovery company has the same rule. If dispatch sends you there, you only dive once. Because anyone who goes back discovers something that was never there the first time. And if you see a second pair of headlights beneath the water, it's already too late. I've spent 12 years pulling cars out of rivers. Most people think it's just another towing job. It isn't. When a vehicle disappears beneath the water, everything changes. The current can drag it hundreds of feet from where it entered. Mud swallows it, trees trap it, visibility drops to almost nothing. Even in broad daylight, a diver can lose sight of his own hand 6 inches from his face. My company contracts with police departments, state agencies, insurance companies, and occasionally desperate families who just want answers. Some recoveries end with relief. Others end with a body bag. Either way, somebody is always waiting on shore. That's the part of the job you never get used to. My name's Tyler, and I work for Blackwater Recovery Services. There are only 6 of us. Ray, our lead diver, has been doing this for over 30 years. He can read a river the way most people read a map. If he tells you a current is dangerous, you don't argue. You move. Our sonar operator, Melissa, can identify the difference between a shopping cart and a pickup truck from a fuzzy image on a monitor. Then there's Hank, who runs the crane, and 2 deckhands who handle rigging, lift bags, and surface safety. I was the youngest diver on the team. Still am. The call came in on a Tuesday just after sunrise. A sedan had gone off County Route 18 during the night and rolled into Lake Mercer. The driver escaped through a broken window before the car sank. By the time we arrived, sheriff's deputies already had the boat ramp blocked off with yellow tape. The lake was calm. The recovery wasn't. Melissa located the sedan in less than 10 minutes using side-scan sonar, 32 feet down, resting on its passenger side. Ray and I rolled backward into the water together. The cold hit like a punch. Within seconds, the daylight disappeared. At 30 feet, everything became green and silent. The sedan emerged from the darkness exactly where Melissa said it would be. We secured lifting straps beneath the frame while years of silt billowed around us. 5 minutes later, Hank raised it slowly toward the surface. Water poured from every broken window. The sheriff nodded. Another routine recovery. By noon, we were loading gear back onto the truck. Ray was rinsing his regulator when Melissa walked over holding her tablet. Dispatch has another one. I expected another lake, maybe a flooded quarry. Instead, she frowned. River recovery. Ray didn't even look up. What location? Melissa hesitated before answering. County marker 14. For the first time all morning, Ray stopped moving. He slowly removed his regulator from the rinse bucket. Did dispatch say first dive? Melissa looked confused. They specifically mentioned that. Ray stared at her. And? They confirmed it. Only then did he nod. Tell them we're on our way. I laughed. What's so special about marker 14? Nobody answered. The ride to the river took almost 2 hours. The conversation never recovered. Even Hank, who usually filled every drive with terrible jokes, sat quietly staring out the windshield. When we finally turned onto an old gravel access road, I saw why. Every tree along the riverbank was covered with faded ribbons. Orange, yellow, blue. Hundreds of them fluttered in the wind. I assumed they marked previous search sites. Ray parked the truck, looked out across the slow-moving water, and quietly said something that made the hair stand up on the back of my neck. Let's make sure, he said, that we only have to do this once. County Marker 14 looked nothing like Lake Mercer. Instead of open water, the river squeezed through a narrow gorge where rock walls climbed nearly 40 feet on both sides. The current wasn't fast, but the surface never stopped moving. Slow circles spread across the water, even though there wasn't enough wind to make them. The faded ribbons covered nearly every tree along the bank. "What are those for?" I asked a sheriff's deputy. He glanced toward the river. "Families tie them here." "For recovered victims?" He shook his head. "For the ones we never found." Before I could ask anything else, Ray stepped between us. "Melissa, sonar." She had already made the first scan. The monitor showed a single SUV resting upright, 38 feet down. Nothing else. Ray stared at the screen. "Run it again." Melissa frowned. "It already looks clean." "Run it!" She made another pass. Same result. One SUV, no debris, no second target. Ray finally nodded. "Good." The deputy handed us the report. A family had been forced off the bridge during the night. The parents escaped. Their 16-year-old son never got out. This wasn't a recovery. It was a retrieval. The mother sat inside a sheriff's SUV near the road. She never looked toward the water. We loaded the boat in silence. I noticed Ray only packed 2 lift bags. Normally, we'd bring extras. "What if one fails?" "It won't." That was all he said. Melissa dropped a marker buoy over the sonar target. Ray clipped the descent line to his harness. Before we rolled overboard, he looked at me. "If something doesn't make sense," he paused, "come straight back up." The cold swallowed us instantly. Within 10 feet, the daylight disappeared. My dive light barely reached beyond my fingertips. The only sound was my own breathing. At 38 feet, the riverbed emerged beneath us. The SUV rested exactly where sonar had placed it. Driver's side facing us, windshield shattered, all 4 doors closed. Nothing unusual. Ray pointed toward the rear axle. I swam underneath and fed the lifting strap through the suspension. Routine. The second strap went beneath the front frame. Everything was textbook. Then something flashed in the corner of my mask. A reflection. I looked up. 2 small points of light floated far downstream. At first, I assumed they were reflections from our own dive lights, but they stayed perfectly level, too far away for our beams to reach. Headlights. I swept my flashlight toward them. The beam vanished into black water. The lights remained. There wasn't supposed to be another vehicle. Sonar had shown only one. I turned toward Ray. He wasn't looking at me. He was staring at the lights, completely motionless. Then he slowly raised one finger, pointing straight at them. For several seconds, neither of us moved. The lights didn't flicker. They didn't drift with the current. They simply waited. Ray suddenly grabbed my arm, his eyes locked onto mine behind his mask. Then he gave the emergency ascent signal. Now. He didn't even bother disconnecting the lift bags. He abandoned everything and shot upward along the descent line. I followed without thinking. As I kicked toward the surface, I made one mistake. I looked back. The distant headlights were brighter now, not because they had turned on, because they were closer than they had been a few seconds earlier. Nobody spoke during the ride back. Not me, not Ray, not Melissa. We left thousands of pounds of equipment sitting on the riverbed. That had never happened before. The sheriff met us at the boat ramp. "What's wrong?" Ray didn't answer immediately. Instead, he removed his dive mask and looked toward the gorge. "The lift bags failed." It was a lie. The sheriff knew it. So did I. But he simply nodded. "When can you go back down?" Ray's expression hardened. "We're not going back." The sheriff frowned. "My kid's still down there." "I know." You have to recover him. Ray looked genuinely pained. I can't. The deputy stepped forward. What do you mean you can't? I mean exactly that. Without another word, Ray walked toward the truck. We loaded our gear in complete silence. Nobody questioned him. Nobody argued. The drive back felt longer than the 2 hours it had taken to get there. Finally, I broke the silence. What did we see? Ray kept his eyes on the road. You saw headlights. There wasn't another vehicle on sonar. I know. So what were they? He didn't answer. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those 2 lights suspended in the darkness. Not moving, just waiting. The next morning I pulled up the county's public accident records. County marker 14 appeared far more often than it should have. Sedans, pickup trucks, motorcycles, even a school bus 30 years earlier. Every report ended the same way. Vehicle recovered. But another line kept appearing. Occupants unrecovered. Again, and again, and again. The river didn't just take vehicles. It kept people. I was still reading when Melissa called. They're sending another team. I sat upright. What? The sheriff hired a private recovery company from out of state. Reno? I just told him. And? He left 5 minutes ago. I drove straight to the shop. Ray was already loading equipment, only this time, he wasn't packing dive gear. He was loading old paper boxes, logbooks, maps, faded photographs. What are you doing? Stopping them. He climbed into the truck. I followed without another question. By the time we reached County Marker 14, another recovery boat was already on the water. Bright white hull, company logo I'd never seen. 4 divers. One was already suited up on the stern. The sheriff waved us over. I thought you weren't coming back. We aren't. Ray pointed toward the boat. They need to leave. The other dive supervisor laughed. We've recovered cars all over the country. Ray didn't smile. Not here. The supervisor shrugged. We've got the sonar. Melissa stared at his monitor. One SUV, exactly where ours had been. Nothing else. Just like yesterday. The diver rolled backward into the river. Ray checked his watch. He didn't watch the water. He watched the seconds. 1 minute, 2, 3. Then, the sonar chirped. Melissa looked down. Her face went pale. A second contact had appeared. No one had seen it arrive. No one had heard anything. It simply existed. Another vehicle, 30 feet beyond the first. The supervisor frowned. That's impossible. Before anyone could react, a third contact appeared. Then a fourth. One by one, new vehicles bloomed across the screen, not drifting, not sinking, already resting on the riverbed, perfectly still. Melissa whispered what all of us were thinking. Those weren't there a minute ago. Ray finally looked at the monitor. They are now. Then every contact on the sonar started moving. Nobody touched the controls. Every new contact appeared on its own. 5, 6, 8, 12. The sonar screen filled with vehicle outlines that hadn't existed seconds earlier. Melissa backed away from the monitor. That's impossible. The out-of-state supervisor grabbed the controls. That's software. He restarted the system. The screen went black. For 3 long seconds, nobody spoke. Then the sonar came back online. Every contact was still there. Except now, there were more. The diver's voice crackled over the radio. I'm at the SUV. The supervisor grabbed the microphone. Any sign of the extra vehicles? A pause. No. Everyone exhaled. Then the diver continued. But something else is down here. The transmission dissolved into static. The supervisor called again. No answer. Another burst of static. Then the diver's breathing returned. Fast, panicked. "I've got headlights." The entire boat went silent. "What headlights?" the supervisor asked. "They're farther out." Ray closed his eyes. "Tell him to come up." The supervisor ignored him. "Can you identify the vehicle?" Another pause. "I can't reach it." "Why not?" "It's too far." Ray stepped forward. "Bring him up, right now." The supervisor shook his head. "He's almost there." Then the diver spoke again. His voice sounded different, quieter. "They're closer now." Ray ripped the microphone from the supervisor's hand. "Listen to me. Leave everything. Grab the ascent line. Do not swim toward the lights." No response. Only breathing. Heavy. Uneven. Then, "I didn't move." The words barely rose above a whisper. "I swear I didn't move." Melissa stared at the depth display. "He's drifting." The current indicator read 0, yet the diver's position had changed. 20 feet, 40, 60. He was moving steadily downstream without kicking. The supervisor looked over the side. "That's impossible." Ray didn't answer. He was already pulling on a dry suit. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Bringing him back." "You said nobody dives twice." "I said we don't." He zipped the suit closed. "I'm not diving." Before I could ask what he meant, he opened one of the old equipment cases we'd brought from the shop. Inside were faded ropes, heavy steel grappling hooks, and a weathered notebook sealed in plastic. The first page was covered with names. Beside every name, a date. At the bottom, one sentence had been underlined so many times the paper had nearly torn. "Never follow the lights. Pull them back blind." Ray clipped one of the old ropes to the recovery crane. "Hook his line." Nobody understood, but everyone helped. The crane took up the slack on the diver's safety tether. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then the cable went tight. Not from the weight of one diver, from something much heavier. The boom groaned. The truck rocked toward the river. "It's snagged!" someone shouted. Ray shook his head. No. The cable tightened another inch. The crane operator looked at the load gauge. His face went white. "We're pulling 23,000 pounds. Silence. A diver doesn't weigh 23,000 pounds. Something beneath the river was pulling back. Then the safety line jerked once, twice, 3 times, not random, 3 deliberate tugs. Ray's face drained of color. "Cut the line." The operator hesitated. "Do it!" The cable snapped tight again. This time, something on the other end pulled back. The operator cut the line. The tension vanished so suddenly the crane boom snapped backward, throwing everyone off balance. The cable disappeared beneath the river. Gone, as if something had reeled it into the darkness. Nobody spoke. Then, the water erupted. The diver exploded to the surface nearly 50 yards downstream. He wasn't swimming. The current carried him toward shore while he clawed at the water, screaming through his regulator. We pulled him into the boat. His mask came off first. His face was gray. His eyes never stopped looking toward the river. "It wasn't the SUV." Nobody answered. "There were cars." He struggled to breathe. "Hundreds of them." The supervisor grabbed his shoulders. "What happened down there?" The diver swallowed hard. "They were parked." "What?" "Like a parking lot." His hands wouldn't stop shaking. "I followed the headlights." Ray closed his eyes. "I know." "They weren't attached to the SUV." His breathing became faster. They belonged to another car. He looked directly at me. And behind that one? His voice cracked. There were rows of them. He began sobbing. I couldn't see the end. The supervisor insisted he was suffering from nitrogen narcosis, shock, panic, anything except what he'd actually seen. Ray ignored him. He walked to Melissa's sonar monitor. The contacts were still there. Every vehicle remained perfectly still until one disappeared. Then another. Then another. Within seconds, the screen showed exactly what it had during the first scan. One SUV. Nothing else. As though the river had decided we had seen enough. The sheriff ordered the recovery suspended. No one argued. The missing teenager was never brought home. Officially, the operation ended because of unstable underwater conditions. That wasn't the truth. It was the only explanation anyone was willing to put on paper. Ray retired 2 months later. On his last day, he handed me the weathered notebook. I hoped I'd never have to pass this on. Inside were entries dating back to 1958. Different divers, different recovery companies, different decades. Everyone described the same impossible things. Headlights in the dark. Vehicles that never appeared on sonar. Safety lines pulled against impossible weight. The final pages contained only one map. County marker 14. Someone had marked a wide circle around the bend in red ink. Across the top, another diver had written 6 words. The river doesn't keep the dead. I frowned. What does it keep? Ray looked toward the garage where our recovery truck sat. The ones still looking for a way out. He left without another word. 3 weeks later, I accepted a routine recovery 40 miles away. A pickup had rolled into a flooded creek after heavy rain. Nothing unusual. Melissa launched the sonar while I suited up. Got it, she called. Single vehicle. I glanced at the monitor. She was right. One truck. Then, the screen flickered, just for a second. A second contact appeared, far beyond the pickup. 2 small points of light glowed from the darkness. Melissa frowned. I didn't touch anything. Neither had I. The lights remained exactly where they were. Waiting. I quietly removed my dive helmet. For the first time in my career, I refused a recovery. The truck is probably still down there. Maybe someone else eventually pulled it out. Maybe they didn't. I never asked, because I finally understood why every old diver who worked that river followed the same rule. It was never about surviving the first dive. It was about making sure there was never a second. If you made it this far, let me ask you something. Would you have gone back down? Because after hearing what happened at County Marker 14, I don't think I could. Some places aren't dangerous because of the current. Some places are dangerous because they don't want to let go. If you enjoyed tonight's story and want more realistic horror inspired by real professions and places, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. New Campfire horror stories are uploaded every week, and trust me, the next one is just as unsettling. And if you have a profession with strange rules, unexplained experiences, or a story that still keeps you awake at night, leave it in the comments. Some of the best horror stories begin with someone saying, "This really happened to me." Until next time, stay out of the deep water. And if you ever see a second pair of headlights beneath the surface, don't go looking for the first.